Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to a new crypto update. Today we'll speak about why BTC is gonna go to 65k and what happened yesterday. I was just waiting the last days. As you guys know, we do these crypto weekly updates, and the last days I was just waiting because nothing was really happening. As you can see, we were going pretty much sideways all the time. And yesterday, this candle tells a big story that we need to speak about today, guys. So the very important thing now here in the BTC chart, if you check it out, is that we got a insane rejection candle over here with an insanely large wick. If I zoom into it, you will see it a little bit better. As you can see, we have a wick of it is about, what is it at 5%, 3%, right? A little bit too much, I guess. But yeah, 3%, which is insane. And if we go into the total overview of where we are right now in BTC, excuse me, guys, we are currently, basically in a bearish sequence, right? As you can see here, we are very, very close of hitting C target. And in this bearish sequence that we are in, we have a bullish active sequence too, right? This is the orange one. Now, the orange sequence leads us into a selling area BC, because obviously this whole structure here starting from 0, A, B, C, which is the target, this whole move over here didn't finish yet, right? And then we have a BC entry, which is basically this box over here, starting at 98,357 up to 104k per BTC, right? This is basically a selling area, and as you can see, that's the prediction here on the chart with the red arrow. From here going up again to the 100k area, probably testing the 100k area, rejecting, going to 65, and from 65 sharply up next year, towards mid next year, something like that. Now, in this internal sequence, again, we have this bullish orange sequence, right? Which is basically starting from the lowest point, first high, and then correction B, and then with C target leading into the selling area, right? Now, also, we have a very strong sell limit area, which we bounced off 1, 2, 3 times here at the 94k area, right? Which is basically marked out through the heat map. We'll check the heat map later together. But yeah, we are respecting this ceiling. You can call it resistance, whatever. At the end of the day, it's just a huge order block with a lot of volume of sell positions over here, okay? And you saw yesterday something very, very interesting, where in this orange sequence, which is bullish, we started to react in the whole correction level, right? Which is basically here from 87 leading to 85k. And from here, we started to have a lot of buy limits in the heat map, which is basically this blue area starting at 96, or basically 97, down to 95, 96, something like that. Okay, so this range is where a lot of buys are. So basically, we are just tumbling around between the resistance and the support in that sense from the orders that we have in. Now, since we started to drop into this area, we started to pick up in price, and then we started to have a lot of buy volume because these limit orders were triggered, and we started to push up very fast, but we rejected instantly. Like, strong sellers came in and pushed the price down again. And this candle is very, 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 very important. It's similar to this candle, for example, here, us leading up into the price, getting strong rejection. Where else can we see that? Here we had more buy volumes, right? We came into the BC correction level, got a wick down, a lot of buys up again, and then again a lot of buys up, and then second time, we started to push up and create a new high in the internal sequence, right? Going back to where we can also find this, just to give you some interesting reference points, why this candle is so important, especially in the area we are in. Like, in turning points where market turns, these candles are very usual, and this was the candle of the liquidation event, right? When we dropped hard and then got bought off very high, and then again here in the fair value zone. So these candles tell a big story, right? And especially in the area where we are right now, because we are not here, right? If we would be up here at the 94k area where we got all of these sells, if we would have gotten this candle up here, it would be logic, right? It would basically just simulate again, same as here and same as here, even though this wick is a little bit smaller, right? Or as we did the example over here, right? These just mean there's a lot of buy volume coming in or a lot of sell volume coming in. And even though we are in mid-range in between the buy limits and the sell limits, we got a very, very, very strong wick candle, which pushed price back down again and gives us a very strong sense of direction, in my opinion. So we are still again in a buy area for BTC, right? But internally only, and externally, which is the more important, the primary sequence is the primary sequence is still bearish, right? And this candle again tells us a very strong story in the sense of that it looks very, very bearish for BTC, because we are trying to get out of a buy area where buyers are accumulating. As you can see, we're going a little bit sideways, right? They're trying to take over, but they're getting very, very strongly rejected. So my prediction right now would be, and the last prediction we had from last week went perfectly fine, and as expected, as all the other predictions basically. But from here, there's basically two ways, right? Way number one is the one that I still lying out over here, is that the buyers win and we push up to again 94 either, right? So either we come here again to 94 retested area and then drop sharply, or we actually go up to the 50% correction level, which is 98K. Everyone is going to be thinking, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And then from here, we drop pretty sharply, I guess, to 65. But for me, the targets of 65 are still insanely valid. And I still want to see BTC going there. It would be very healthy for the whole chart. And it would be very good for future strong prices, right? And at the end of the day, we have a pretty high probability of us going there. Maybe not today, obviously, maybe not tomorrow, maybe not in the next weeks, maybe only next year, but it will step by step continue to be very bearish. And then midterm, again, a little bit more bullish, and then long-term very bullish, obviously, right? That just because I say bearish now, I'm not saying that Bitcoin is going to shit, right? I'm just saying that right now the price action shows us a lot of signs of us actually willing to go to lower levels, because we have been holding this level here, this region of 83, above 80, basically 85, 84, 87, highest was then 94. This area we were holding since a very long time already, which is basically this whole sideways movement over here that we are seeing, right? And when we have the sideways movements, there's going to be a breakout, right? If we move this over to a clean page, or basically if we move this over, there's going to be a time where this is going to start to either go up or don't go down, right? After these sideways trends, that's what charts always do. They accumulate. It's in a fair price. Same here, we had these sideways trends and then we broke this level and we went down, right? Same we had over here, we had a sideways trend and we broke up, right? Or broke out to the upward side. So same thing is going to happen over here. But again, it's giving us more clearer signs for lower levels, right? And then another prediction basically, which is right now what it seems like that this is going to happen, is we're going to break out of this last low of 83 and 80 and really drop below that and make our way to 78 and then later on 65, right? So these are the two scenarios right now. Scenario number one is this one. From here on, we just continue to basically drop further out of the structure. Second scenario is the one we have here, where we go again to either 94 or we touch the 95 and then we go lower from there. Obviously, better overviews we're going to get here in the order book flow for the heat map. So, sorry, in the heat map basically with the orders. And what you're going to see over here, first of all, is the liquidation heat map for BTC, right? So this is where people are having their liquidation areas, right? And as you can see, there's a big liquidation area at 94 still, okay? People are selling heavy and they are very heavy in profit, but with their leverage positions, either 25x, 50x, 75x, 100x, a lot of liquidation will happen if price comes to this area again, which is above 94, 95 area, right? So if we go into the chart, they're basically selling and their stop loss is somewhere over here, most of them, like somewhere over here. So if we change this to red, they're selling, their stop losses are somewhere over here, right? And price loves to go to these liquidation areas because big market makers, banks, institutions, they need this liquidity up here. They need to catch this liquidity for their orders. They can just not book normal orders into the market, not like us, right? They have very big orders. So magnetically, these charts love these liquidation areas. So especially here 94 up to 96 is a very strong liquidation area. And then again, also below, starting at 83 and then 82, we have some liquidation sitting for buy, for buys basically, right? But so far it looks more like we're gonna go up and liquidate this area again. So that would mean this scenario where we go again to the 94, maybe a little bit higher, maybe even wick again to the 95. So we have a strong case for that, and then really start dropping heavy over here and create these new lows. That really depends now also on other factors like fundamentals or even what the Dixie is going to do. The Dixie currently is being very, very strong. We are starting to react again in the BC after being very weak. So if Dixie goes up, crypto goes down, that's going to play a big role. So if in Dixie we should push up from here to the re-entry area, that's a clean 1% nearly. That's going to affect BTC a little bit. And then also something very interesting is going to happen in the next days, which is basically tomorrow, right? The 19th of December. We're going to have the BOG policy rate decision for JPY, right? So they're going to speak about the rate increase or cut. They think it's going to be a cut, as you can see, previous 0.5%, now going to 0.75%, right? So interest rates leave it on excess current account balances held by the BOJ, actually greater than forecast, good for the currency, right? So if the forecast hits, then it's going to be strong for the currency, okay? Which you need to understand one thing about the Japanese yen. There's something called the JPY carry trade, which basically means it was very, very, very cheap for many, 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 many years to lend out Japanese yen. Why? Because if you check the JPY interest rate, we just need to switch here into the weekly chart here, JPENTR, which is the Japanese interest rate. You will see that we were even in minus. So you can see it was very, very, very cheap in these areas to lend money in the last years, even in minus, right? Which basically means you have minus interest rates. They pay you for lending money in that sense, right? But basically it meant it was very cheap to get JPY, Japanese yen, and then invest it, right? And a lot of the risky assets like stocks, BTC, and so on, they live off this, right? People getting JPY, taking this money for free and investing it into assets. Now, since we are increasing, sitting at 0.5 now, going to 0.75, right? That means this carry trade basically reverses, right? It is not cheap anymore to take money, and there's no free money going into the market, which is not good for BTC. And if you go into the past, every time so far the BOJ increased the interest rate, it took a big hit on BTC. I don't think if it's gonna be that big hit this time, but it's also playing into the mid predictions of where we are going here to the 65 range in BTC. That's something we need to look out for. But then there's also for the new year a little bit of hope, and that's why I think in the new year we're gonna be very sharply up, which Trump, new Fed chair, will believe in lower interest rates by a lot, right? So if you go on the Walter Bloomberg's X page and you check just the updates, right, or any news, you will see Trump, new Fed chair, will believe in low interest rates. We had this one: Trump will announce aggressive housing reformation next year. Trump, next Fed chair, believes in low interest rates. Trump, mortgages rates will be coming down. So they are willing to come very, very low with the Dixie, right? Which is very positive. If you go again into the Dixie, it is very, very positive for the dollar. For crypto, if Dixie goes down, that's what I'm trying to say. So if Dixie comes down even more, which is the strength of the dollar, so if we like really think about you know, going into even breaking this here low at 96 and even lower than that, so if we come into these areas, a lot of money will go into the market, because lower interest rates means it's lower interest on loans for people to take. And if the Dixie drops a lot, right, then it's very cheap to get money. And where does this money go? Into risky assets, right? So if crypto wants in the new year to go up, then this will be a big favor, or will be in a big favor for it. Then going into JPY, this is the JXY, which shows us the strength or weakness for the JPY. JPY was very low for a long time, but it's starting to react pretty bullish. We have a C target sitting at 65, which would be an increase of right now of nearly 3% or 2.5%, which is a lot, right? So this is not so good for crypto. Okay, so short term, midterm, not good for crypto. More midterm to long term, very good for crypto, what we're seeing. And that's why I come up with this theory of us going to 65K, which again would also price action wise be the perfect thing in the chart. And then also if we go into the history and back, you will see these 50% corrections happen a lot, sometimes even higher than that. Here we had a close one in this area, nearly got into the blue BC. Then here we even overextended, we got lower than BC in this area, right, where we had the 16,000 BTC. And then here you see a perfect example back in the times when we hit 65K and then we dropped perfectly into 29K area, which is BC correction. So this is really what we want to see here in BTC, for us to really push higher, right? Which would then, at the end of the day, if we simulate it, and I know this chart is a little bit messy, so yeah, okay, let's just keep it here. But basically, if you go from the lowest point to the highest point, and we say we get the BC correction at 50%, right? C target would lead us to 260K for BTC. So that also leads me to the future prediction of BTC. We cannot say it perfectly. We first need this BC correction to happen. So we need to decide, do we drop to here, 65, 64, do we drop lower? But this is going to give us the direction where Bitcoin is heading into the future, which is currently sitting at more or less 260K, 250K, 240K, something like that, right? Which you might think I'm crazy, but if you go back, I already predicted more than 3 years ago that Bitcoin is going to go to 127K and then bounce off. And that's exactly what we did. And this is this sequence over here. If you start here from the low, right? If you start here from the low, and we need to actually adjust this as I see. So you can see how perfectly it went into C target. You take the lowest point, A, first correction, C, okay, BC correction, and that leads you for C target with Fibonacci extensions, which is 168 and 2. And you can see how perfectly price went from all the way down from 14K up to 120K, 22K, and then highest point 125, 126K per USD, right? This is not USDT. With USDT, it's going to be a little bit higher. But these predictions work very, very well. And the next one is exactly this one, 260K. So a lot of covered today, short term, midterm, 65, 64K. Here I'm going to start to buy heavy also in crypto in general. All of the coins that I always prefer, like Chainlink, XRP, XLM, XMR, XRP. I already had that, SPX, Solana, LTC, Casper, HBAR, ENA, BNB, all of these ones, right? I still believe we have a lot to go lower, and I'm completely out of any crypto right now anyways, besides my BTC holdings. And then from there, we start the next run, basically up to 260K. So yeah, that is my future prediction, guys. With that being said, comment any questions below. Give me feedback. I'm always open. I read all of the comments. And make sure to like and follow. And we see us in the next one.